Greetings, my dear humans, this is Spino. Welcome to my kingdom, and welcome to another installment of Spino Reads. Now tonight's video is gonna be a long one, as I'll be reading the last 3 updates to this story. If you haven't seen it yet, the link will be in the description. So without further ado, let's begin. Tonight's topic is r/ entitled People. Update 2. Well, my brother came pounding on my front door again a few days ago, and this time he was drunk. He drunkenly told me he found out about my Reddit post because he tried to get back together with his ex, and she told him she found out what he was planning. So his dumbass thought it'd be a good idea to get wasted and then confront me. He even vomited on my porch step, and then did something I didn't see coming. He curled up on the ground crying. I figured he was gonna attack me or something because he was acting so deranged. But instead, he just got in a sort of fetal position and cried in the grass while blaming me for his problems in between swigs from the bottle he was carrying. From what I could get out of him, he recently went to see his ex and begged her to take him back, but she told him he was a man-child and she'd never want to marry him, and then explained how she knew he was planning on proposing. He went home and searched online till he found my Reddit posts and read them. He went through a lot of comments on my prior posts, and when he realized next to nobody saw things from his point of view, he broke his computer monitor and started pounding a bottle of vodka while walking over to my home since I only live a couple of miles from my grandma's house. While he was sitting on the ground, he was drunkenly cussing at me and saying it's my fault that everyone but grandma hates him now. I had no sympathy and told him he did all that to himself. Sure, I aired our dirty laundry online by telling everyone, but he was still the entitled jerk who never really grew up and goes crying to granny like a spoiled brat when he doesn't get his way. Time to grow up and man up. He called me a few more things that I could barely understand, and then pretty much stopped talking to just sit there and keep drinking and crying. I ended up taking away what was left of his bottle of vodka and said that maybe when he's sober he can see some common sense. Then I called a taxi to take him home. I wasn't about to drive to grandma's house because I don't want to see or be anywhere near her. My brother didn't even thank me for calling and paying for the taxi, just flopped himself into the backseat and told the driver to get going. I got a call the next day from the taxi service stating my brother had vomited multiple times all over the back seat in the short time he was in the cab, and it took $200 to thoroughly clean it because it was everywhere. I apologized and mailed them a check for their trouble. It's been a few days since that happened, but the crap didn't end there, so I'll be making another post very soon. Just as I thought in the last video, not only he wasn't ready to propose, but he's also not ready to be a man. What a pathetic man-child. This is what happens when you raise your children differently. They'll start acting like the world is revolved around them, even though it's not. Not only will they lose trust from their families, but they'll also lose many friends because of their entitled attitude. And oh boy, wait until you read the next couple of updates. Update 3. I knew it. I just knew it, and some of you called it. My grandma couldn't leave well enough alone. She and my brother were already both uninvited for my upcoming wedding and borderline ghosted, but now she's gone and made a huge scene about it. She took my brother over to my parents' house to show them my Reddit posts. Thing is, my parents already knew about them and I've read them, because I admitted to them after my brother drunkenly came to my home to yell at me, and my parents no longer care because the situation opened their eyes some time ago. But my grandma laid it on thick to my parents about how she has been thoroughly humiliated by me, and that she didn't understand why I do this over something so trivial as my brother proposing at my upcoming wedding. Well, this next part I never expected. My mom, ever the passive doormat to her mother for as long as I can remember, finally lost it on grandma about how she's a narcissist, and how her influence made her and my dad seem like ones too, and they were idiots to let that happen. And then they told grandma and my brother that the whole wanting to propose at my wedding thing was a completely stupid and selfish idea, and then reiterated reasons I have stated as to why, with it likely being my brother wanting to put his ex on the spot in front of the whole family. Then my parents told them both to get out, especially my brother. They admonished him because he'd used them as a veritable ATM for years and barely contributed financially after landing a good job. And then me, the son they'd regretfully ignored, was someone they were far more proud of because I helped them start to undo the damage they've done to themselves. And thus far, I've asked for nothing in return. Grandma, I told, left in hysterics, and my brother was silent most of the time. The next part is from my own experience, as grandma called me again to yell at me. I let her have her rant while my fiance and I just let the phone sit on the coffee table while on speaker mode. After a while, grandma realized I wasn't saying anything back and yelled at me to speak to her. So I said something one of the commenters I've had here pointed out in a prior post, that she's a coward who thinks she's in charge, but she's not and never will be. She can't boss me around, she has nothing to leverage over me, and she always acts like she doesn't understand my reasoning when I know she does, but she doesn't ever care to admit it. Then I called her out on the lies she spewed about me to my fiancé, which Grandma immediately denied, but then my fiancé spoke up and said she told me everything Grandma had said to her, then asked why she would do that. Did she not want me to be married and be happy or something? And that's when it came out. Grandma yelled that she was pissed I'm getting married before my brother. She wanted to see him married first because he's older and her favorite grandson, and she believed the least I could have done was let my brother try to save his relationship by proposing at my wedding. I said that wasn't trying to save a relationship, that was trying to trap that poor woman in one by hoping she wouldn't say no in front of a crowd. But I've already spoken to my brother's ex before she cut contact with all of us, and I know for certain she'd have said no to him anyway, and she'd been ready to break up with him for months. I doubt the relationship would have even lasted long enough to make it to my wedding. Then I said I knew she was going to call me selfish, so I pointed out all the things that make her selfish and me not. I'm helping out my parents financially when I didn't have to. I didn't ask for money from anyone when I went to college. I actually worked hard at my relationship with my significant other and didn't scheme to try and find a way to take control of it, while my grandma would rather spew out any reason she can think of to make my brother the golden boy who can do no wrong. She lied about me just to try and ruin my relationship in hopes my brother would marry first, and she openly admitted to having a favorite grandson. Now that's selfish. Then I said that if it turned out my brother had been in love with my fiancé or something, I bet she would have demanded I give her to my brother as well, because that's just the kind of selfish narcissist she is. Then all I could hear on the line was Grandma loudly sobbing and my brother trying to console her. He didn't say anything to me, and then the phone hung up, either by him or her, I don't know, but I think it's fair to say I really verbally tore Grandma apart this time, much more so than I ever had before, and yes, this time I finally blocked her number, and my brother's too. Wow, and just when you thought his grandma hadn't shown her true colors before, and for her to say OP's brother is her favorite grandson, it really tells you a lot about her, and this is exactly why I hate parents and grandparents who favors one child and not the other, and your grandmother OP has to learn the hard way. And like what you said, she made her bed, now she can lie in it. Like how she lied about all the awful things she said about you, all because she wants to see her favorite grandson be married before you, instead of being happy for you and your fiancé. God, what a horrible grandmother. It doesn't matter who gets married first, as long as you're happy for them, that's all that matters. But in this case, she wasn't. And good on your parents for telling your grandma and brother off for what they did, but they also had to learn the hard way. Well, it's been a ride. A fair has happened since my last post, so I thought it'd be best to wait till I'm married and settled in after my honeymoon to speak to everyone. Firstly, I want to say that I don't know shit about taxes other than I pay them, but someone here questioned how I could write off the money I was giving to my parents monthly for their mortgage, and I honestly thought I could, but a person who actually does taxes contacted me and said that wasn't possible, or at the very least shouldn't be possible because I don't have partial ownership of the house, and that it made me curious that I may be breaking the law. Well, I looked into it, and long story short, the person who was doing my taxes before no longer is. I took my questions to the owner of the tax firm and explained to him that the guy who was doing my taxes was getting me a roughly 1/3 write-off on the money I was paying to my parents monthly. Well, the owner said he rechecked my records himself and said he called me later. Took a few days, but he told me that the guy who was doing my taxes did a few things that he shouldn't, and that he had previous record of doing this. The firm fired him, and the owner apologized profusely and asked me not to take my business elsewhere. I believe in supporting local businesses and shop from them when I can, so I told him that as long as my records are clean, I'll stay with them, and he assured me that he'll make sure everything is. I do find it stupid the owner didn't fire my former tax guy after his first offense, and I get the feeling he rug swept a lot of things, but he assured me that my taxes will be done by him personally from now on, so I'm gonna give him the chance to make everything right. Since my last post, my parents have also managed to rent out both of their spare rooms. Both tenants are young women who are first-time renters, and they've each taken a room. Both are pleasant enough, but I barely spoken to them. My parents said they're pretty good tenants, so we'll see how everything goes. My father has also begun remodeling the attic into another room that they can eventually rent. It's gonna be a slow process as he doesn't have a lot of time to work on it unless it's on weekends, but he's determined to get it done. Now on to the period before my wedding. Well, my grandma went mental. Apparently, after I told her off over the phone about a month ago, she went off her rocker even further and actually lashed out at my brother, which is something I thought she'd never do, which how much she loves and enables him. After about a week, a neighbor heard all the commotion and ended up going to check on her, and she attacked him over it. Police were called and took grandma into custody for a psych hold, and she tried to attack one of the officers as well, but she's a frail old lady with false teeth. Not a lot she can do to one of them. My parents went in to see her, but visitors weren't permitted until the 3 days were over, and when they were, my parents met with her and told me she was hamming it up, playing the victim, and trying to get my parents back on her side. My mother said grandma was still blaming me, and also saying that she still had a right to be at my wedding. Well, my mother let her have it by saying that she lost that right after everything she said and did, all the lies and gaslighting, and being mad at me for something as petty as getting married before my man-child older brother that she outright said was her favorite grandson. Meanwhile, my brother was chilling in our house because he had it all to himself until my grandma was allowed to return home. Don't have much information from that point since my parents didn't bother to see my grandma or my brother again thus far. Next is my wedding. The outdoor venue my wife and I picked was beautiful. There was a good-sized man-made pond with paddle boats and plenty of wild ducks and frogs, though the ducks came right up to people begging for food. We brought some loaves of cheap wheat bread so the kids in the family could toss some to the ducks. The venue was also near a golf course, so kids were having fun hunting for lost golf balls like they were Easter eggs. They actually found a lot of them. That was some good wholesome fun. Yes, I did have security there, and yes, my grandma did show up and try to get in, even though her invitation had been officially rescinded. She still had the one she'd gotten in the mail since she refused to return it after being uninvited. My brother wasn't with her, but she drove 200 miles herself just to try and get into my wedding. She showed up acting sweet, but then turned into a crazy witch when the guard refused her entry. She screamed out my name and demanded to be let in, and she refused to leave till she spoke to me, until security threatened to call the police. She ended up screaming at him and then waddles back to her car, and that was it for that. But this was not the end of the story, oh no, because now that the only person still talking to my grandma was my older brother, I guess she started taking things out on him. No family scapegoats left for her to yell at. So she started going crazy on my brother since he was under her roof now. I know this because he sent me a letter since I've blocked him on everything but snail mail. I got the letter after coming back from my honeymoon. It was a letter with a mix of apologies and blaming me. He said he was sorry for wanting to propose at my wedding and sees how crummy it would have been to try that, and that I was right about him being underhanded and trying to ask his ex to marry him in front of so many people, but then said he was angry he didn't get to go to my wedding because I couldn't overlook his traumas. Then he said he was sorry for letting grandma treat me the way she did for so long, because now he's getting some of that himself. Then he blamed me for getting grandma so worked up in the first place over yelling at her and then not letting her into my wedding. Then went on to blame me for our parents kicking him out of their house and being stuck with grandma because she's driving him up the wall. They didn't kick him out, he left when they wanted him to pay rent properly. So now he's apartment hunting. He did apparently ask my parents to move back in with them, but they outright refused and told him to get his own place, and that's about it on that. And on a side note, my brother's ex-girlfriend still has not reached out or spoken to anyone in my family since she last spoke with me. Not that I blame her, I barely knew her anyway, and we have no mutual friends. I checked her social media recently though, and she seems just fine without my brother in her life, so if she reads this, I'll just say good for you. Live well and don't ever let crazy like my brother back in again. And to my brother, whom I know will likely find and read this soon, get a life, man. Stop blaming your shit on me and grow up. You're on your own now and the rest of us aren't gonna hold you up anymore. And if you do manage to date again, don't screw it up like last time. You and I know why things didn't work out with your ex, and I hope you realize now that running to Grammy and getting drunk won't help you anymore when you're 30 years old. The world doesn't revolve around you, so let it go. As for me, my honeymoon was great. We went on the road and made it all the way to the coast. My wife also insisted we go cycling. I'm not much of a bicycle rider, but it was fun to go a couple of miles down a coast road. Ended up dead tired though, need to get in better shape. Anyways, I'd like to thank everyone here for listening to me and offering their advice. It really helped. Bravo OP, bravo, and congratulations on your wedding. I am so proud of you and your fiancé. Your grandma and brother on the other hand? Nah, and I do hope your brother will learn that the world doesn't revolve around him at all. and that drinking and running to Grammy like a spoiled kid won't do him any good. Hopefully down the line he'll be able to function like a proper and civil human being. I don't know about your grandmother though, because she was absolutely unhinged. And look dude, I wouldn't trust the boss of the guy who worked on your taxes, because he was probably rug sweeping everything, but given the fact that you're such a kind individual, you handled it very well. But nonetheless, congratulations once again. I hope both of you have a good life down the line, and probably start a family. Best wishes to both of you. Now before the video ends, I just realized that OP has posted another update, which was posted 4 months ago. I did say this was going to be a two-parter, and I do really want to comment on it, but that's something I will cover next time. And that should do it for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this evening's installment of Spino Reads, and if you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe, and click on the bell to be notified for future videos. What are your thoughts on the situation? Please comment down below. Thank you for watching, and until we meet again, my dear humans, farewell.